Order, order. We start with questions to the Secretary of State for Scotland, Martin Docherty-Hughes.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I realise that many of my colleagues on the benches diagonally opposite are somewhat preoccupied by the contest to become the leader of the SNP and Scotland's First Minister. In my view, this is a real opportunity for a new First Minister to reset the relationship with the United Kingdom Government, to work constructively with us and to make life better for the people of Scotland. We need a First Minister who will put Scotland's interests above the nationalist interests. And my offer to all those running in this is that the United Kingdom Government stands ready to work with you, and that will be the real win for improving the lives of people in Scotland. And with permission, Mr. Speaker, I'll answer questions number 1, 11 and 14 together. My assessment is that retained EU law reform will have a positive impact on Scotland by boosting the competitiveness of the economy while respecting devolution and maintaining high standards. Reform will ensure that regulations meet the needs of the United Kingdom and will provide the opportunity to turn us into the best regulated economy in the world, encouraging prosperity, business, innovation and entrepreneurship.
Can I just say, Secretary of State, Scott's question is short enough without taking all of the time. Martin Docherty-Hughes.
Thank the Governor-General for that long-winded response. The Economics for the Environment report has calculated that lower standards in just the areas of chemical regulation, water pollution, air quality and protection of habitats will cost the British Government £83 billion over the next 3 decades. Does the Secretary of State believe it's right for Scotland to face yet another £1 billion price tag for a Brexit it didn't vote for?
Secretary of State.
I don't recognise that analysis, Mr. Speaker. On the environment, we are respecting standards. We're increasing standards. On the areas that are devolved, we respect that, and the Scottish Government are able to deal with those matters under retained EU laws they see fit. And where there's overlap, we have frameworks and we will work together.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Utter drivel, I think, is the parliamentary term. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents has warned that EU retained law bill threatens not only economic harm, but that weakened safety standards on construction and other work sites risk the loss of life and limb and may as well have the motto saving time and costing lives. So how many Scottish workers' lives does the Secretary of State believe are a worthwhile price to pay for a Brexit race to the bottom?
Secretary of State.
Well, when it comes to utter drivel, Mr. Speaker, it shouldn't be a competition. But the honourable member takes it to a new height. I mean, what utter drivel that is. Workers' rights are entirely protected. In fact, they're being enhanced by this government, and they are not dependent on EU membership.
Joanna Chorley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The negative impacts of Brexit are already visible, with food prices up 6% and a third of companies which formerly exported to the EU giving up due to customs paperwork, and that includes companies in my constituency. Does the Secretary of State not recognise that it's Brexit which is causing more red tape for businesses, and that diverging from EU standards further under this much criticised bill will simply exacerbate trade friction with the continent further?
Secretary of State.
Well, Mr. Speaker, no, because I believe that we have a comprehensive trade agreement with the EU, and we are working out and ironing out the problems. We've been very successful in doing that. We did it particularly with the fishing industry. But we have in front of us huge opportunities, not just the trade deals with Australia, New Zealand and others, but also the comprehensive and progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will be almost half the world's trade, and it will be a huge opportunity for Scotland's food and drink industry.
Levin Mundell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that it would be ideal if the new First Minister put as much focus on the powers that the Scottish Government already has than on retained EU law? And was he as disappointed as I was to find that once again the Scottish Government were unable to take over the devolved powers on welfare that they were given in 2016, and it now looks that those powers will not come into place until 2026, 10 years after the Scotland Act?
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend is absolutely right, and I know he was in the Scotland office when those powers were devolved in 2016, and they won't, some of them, come into operation until 2026, and this is because whilst we want to work with the Scottish Government, and we are working with them, and we hope we will deliver these programmes at the Scottish Government's pace, the pace could be moved up if they spent more time focusing on the day job and less time on their obsession with separation.
SNP spokesperson Dr Philippa Whitford.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. DEFRA alone has identified over 1,700 pieces of retained EU law, with the majority in devolved areas such as agriculture, forestry and fishing. What happens if the Scottish Government wants to maintain some EU standards his party wants to ditch? Does he think it would be right for UK ministers to change regulations in devolved matters without consent? How does that respect devolution?
Well, Mr Speaker, I'd say to the honourable lady that we're working constructively and collaboratively with the Scottish Government on these retained EU laws. We have offered, whether we have agreement, and it's a cross-UK piece of policy, where we have agreement, we will legislate on behalf of the devolved administrations. Where it is in the devolved area, we respect that, and we will allow the Scottish Government to do as it sees fit in that area, and if it wants to remain in line with EU regulations, it can. And there is a rule at REUL, retained EU working group for the bill, and their officials have been on that since March 2022, and we're making good, steady progress.
Dr Whitford.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. But because of the Internal Market Act, goods made in the rest of the UK can't be kept out of Scotland, even if they don't meet future Scottish standards on quality, safety or environmental impact. So does he recognise that the combined effect of both pieces of legislation will drastically increase the degree of direct rule by Westminster and drives a coach and horses through devolution?
Well, that isn't true, Mr Speaker. We are respecting the devolved settlement. So if you take precision breeding, for instance, gene editing, it's the case that the Scottish farming industry, the National Farmers Union of Scotland and all other farming unions in the UK want to be part of that bill, but we have respected the Scottish Government saying they don't want to be part of it. They want to their dogma desires them to carry on with the EU rules, and we respect that. But as regards the UK internal market, it's absolutely right that the trade can continue seamlessly across the United Kingdom, because 60% of Scotland's trade is with the rest of the United Kingdom.